Okay, welcome back everybody to 2 on OSU. I'm Sam Hutchens, joined by my fellow beat reporter who also happens to be my twin, Ben Hutchens. And Ben, we now cover a 2-2 football team here at 2 on OSU. The Cowboys just lost their first conference game of the year in Ames, 34-27 against Iowa State. Now, Ben, we were there. We'll get into if Mike Gundy made the right quarterback decision, if Alan Bowman did enough to keep the job, if the Cowboys defense the last couple games is a major concern or a minor concern. But first off, we've got a major announcement to make and kind of some major props to give out. Ben, I know you've done your research. I know you know the answer, but for everyone at home who wants a dramatic pause, do you know how many times Barry Trammell's given blood in his life?
278 times Barry Trammell has gone in and donated blood. I mean, it might take me a while to count to that high of a number. So certainly props to our own Barry Trammell. Sam, there's a lot of areas where you want to strive to be like Barry Trammell, and this is certainly one of them. Here at Sellout Crowd, we're partnering with the Oklahoma Blood Institute, Bob Moore Auto Group for a really cool cause. What are we doing here at the Sellout Crowd, Sam?
Well, we're trying to be like Barry, and that means get to 278. We're trying to get donors for the Oklahoma Blood Institute to team up and deliver more blood. It's just great. It's so necessary, and it doesn't even take that much time out of your day. We're all signed up for it at Sellout Crowd, and it is very simple. The best way I'll tell you to do it is just go to selloutcrowd.com/OBI, and you can visit that website. There's a link. It'll help you to reserve your spot, and it's just such a great way to use your time. Maybe you use it to watch TikTok videos. Maybe you're listening to this podcast while giving blood, Ben. You know, who knows what the folks are doing, but we'd certainly encourage you to be like that and be a hero. You know, it's possible to be a hero.
Yeah, really cool cause. You can also win a car. So I'll just throw that at the end. That's also something pretty cool to come out of this whole thing. But man, that weekend in Iowa State, what are you thinking about the Cowboys right now, Sam?
Well, I think the concern off the top for the Cowboys is you start looking back to, man, when's the last time this team has missed a bowl game again? And then you go through the schedule and you think, could it happen again this year? The Cowboys are 2-2. The last time they missed a bowl game was 2005. In 2006 to on is OSU's streak. I think it's sixth longest in the nation right now of active bowl game streaks. And it's hard to say the streak's in jeopardy 4 games in. The wins are still out there for the taking. But, you know, if you were adding up the schedule before this, Ben, you're thinking Iowa State, the Cowboys, that's one that you'd check off. If this team's gonna be a good team and make a bowl game. But the Cowboys, I think they played better than South Alabama, but they still did not play like a very good team for large stretches of the game. Ben, where do you want to jump right into it? Do you think the bowl streak's in jeopardy at all? Can this team turn it around? What did you see out of them?
I do think the bowl streak is in jeopardy. Yeah, I mean, you have to say so. On paper, at the start of this season, a lot of people figured OSU could be 4-0 heading into the bye week to play Kansas State. Well, that didn't happen. They're 2-2 heading into the bye week with a lot to think about. A lot of things they need to fix. And Sam, the last 2 times OSU started 2-2, they have made a bowl game. Yep. 2016, they finished 10-3, got really hot. And then in 2012, OSU finished 8-5 and beat Purdue in the Heart of Dallas Bowl. Sam, I think this season is more similar to that 2012 year where there was kind of a quarterback competition to start and, you know, a lot of things coming together still. Clint Shelf ends up emerging and kind of taking hold and really doing some solid things at the end of that 2012 season. I see the start of that, Sam. I see right now a lot of different things still trying to take form, a quarterback competition going on. But I don't know if I see a Clint Shelf in the waiting to come in and take hold of this team and start winning a bunch of games late. So yeah, I do think it's the bowl streak is in jeopardy. I mean, how could you not think that?
And just a reminder, Cowboys, the first step to getting a bowl streak, you got to finish 500 and have 6 wins. So that's the criteria OSU needs to hit. And in the past, I'm not great at math, 2023 minus 2006, you know, the Cowboys, their streak, it's been such a formality before. But I remember even just back to last year, there were times where the Cowboys, it was just like, is this team going to make a bowl game? And the way they finished slowly. So, but it is notable, Ben, like you said, in 2012 and 2016, the last 2-2 starts for OSU, the Cowboys ended up pummeling Colorado in the Armed Forces Bowl and beating Purdue, or pummeling Colorado in the Alamo Bowl and beating Purdue in the Heart of Dallas Bowl. So we'll see how that all pans out. But Ben, you brought up the quarterback play. If there's a quarterback emerging, I don't pin that loss on Alan Bowman. I thought Alan Bowman played pretty well. I think right now he played well enough to keep the starting job. Mike Gundy said he's pretty much not willing to volunteer that information, and I wasn't really expecting him to in the post-game press conference going into a bye week where he'll have 2 weeks before he has to make a decision. But to me, starting Bowman and leaving him in, that was kind of the determination of, hey, they believe Bowman is the guy, and I don't think he played poorly enough to pull him.
No, I mean, it's a risky game to play the, hey, who's this loss on game. But I think it has a lot more to do with the Cowboy defense than Alan Bowman. That said, I wasn't inspired by Alan Bowman. He didn't do anything to get me to jump out of my seat and say, yes, like the Cowboys need to start this guy the rest of the season. I don't think this quarterback battle is ever going to be truly won, if that makes any sense. I mean, there's always going to be some talk and some whispers of, hey, there's another guy right in the waiting there. So,
well, I think the deal is no one can win it because they're all pretty equal. It's like at this point we've had a large enough sample size. So I'm with you, Ben.
Yeah, and I mean, I said in the last episode of 2 on OSU, what makes you think that after 3 games there's going to be anything else to separate these guys? So I think Mike Gundy maybe said, look, we just got to pick someone. And it sounds like he picked Bowman. After a great week of practice, of course, we're able to report on what we see on Saturdays, but we don't know how practice was going for Bowman. Maybe he blew everyone away there. And that's what led to Mike Gundy picking them. He didn't really let us know that either. Why'd you pick Bowman? He seemed to keep everything pretty close.
He said on Monday he was going to rotate all 3 guys. And then it emerges Saturday, Bowman's the guy. But Ben, you're right. We cannot report. We don't have access to practice for the 6 days of the week that aren't publicized on Fox Sports 1 or whatever. But from what I saw in the 3 previous games, to me it was like, okay, was the quarterback battle kind of a sham then? Because if you were always going to go with Bowman, I don't think Bowman was the best quarterback in the quarterback battle. I would maybe say that was more of a toss-up between Gunnar Gundy and Garrett Rangel. So obviously practice, you get way more snaps in practice than you do in the game, but those game snaps, they matter. And you could make an argument feasibly, and a lot of people that are smarter than me at football, and like Casey Dono has access to the playbook and knows receivers who ran wrong routes and all that. I'm sure they could have drawn up whoever they wanted after the 3 games. But to me, it seemed like, man, if you were solely using those 3 games as your criteria, Bowman, I don't know if he deserved it, but he played well enough to, I don't believe, be removed going forward.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And at the end of the day, I don't think it was Alan Bowman that cost the Cowboys that game. The defense is what I wrote about, Sam, and the defense is going to be what wins OSU football games this season.
Yeah,
it's kind of how the team's been built the last 3 years, and I really see. I mean, if like Gunnar Gundy, Garrett Rangel would have really made a difference out there against Iowa State with the way the defense played, I'm not so sure.
So is it a major concern, Ben, or a minor concern, the way Oklahoma State's played on defense the last 2 games? Because the Cowboys gave up 34 to Iowa State, gave up 33 to South Alabama, and that's not winning football. That's not the type of winning football that the Cowboys need from that unit. So is it a major concern or a minor concern for you that this Brian Nardo defense has had some growing pains 4 games in?
The most concerning part to me, Sam, is the way the Cowboys are missing assignments on defense. They've gone from missing tackles to missing assignments. Remember at the beginning of the year, the missed tackles were the really big problem and the talking point around the OSU defense. They missed something like 14 the first week and then 16 the next. Well, they were down to 4 missed tackles against Iowa State. But after a loss, nobody talks about the missed tackles. They talk about the missed assignments that led to touchdowns. Iowa State was catching the ball in space. Two of their touchdowns, Mike Gundy said afterward, we kind of handed them with blown assignments. One of them, Epps fell on the turf. That happens sometimes in Iowa State, but still just too wide open. So that is concerning for me, Sam, especially the fact that it's happened in the past two games, I think. Both of these 30-point margins or 30-point scoring from opponents have come because Oklahoma State's missed some assignments on the defensive end.
It's interesting in terms of maybe it's a major concern now that could be a minor concern depending on how long Brian Nardo is here at Oklahoma State and if he becomes a sort of Jim Knowles, just like there were major concerns with what Jim Knowles did, the last Oklahoma State defense coordinator who stayed for multiple years and was able to develop his scheme. There were major concerns with him that turned out to be growing pains for the Cowboys eventually, reaching the land of milk and honey later in the year or 3 years, really, it took him. So that's something I'll be monitoring too. Is this just the growing pains you expect from a guy like Brian Nardo coming in and changing everything? Or are there going to be major concerns that keep cropping up for OSU?
Yeah, you have to expect some of it, I think. And Brian Nardo's not going to tell you that. He's going to say that it's all on him, and they should be up to the standard right now. And that's certainly the hope. But I think the reality is, with all the guys OSU lost in the secondary, not only last year to the transfer portal with Jabbar Muhammad, but the previous year, going all the way back to McAllister and all those different leaders in the secondary, Sam, are all gone. OSU's secondary is fairly young, and especially last week in Iowa State without Lyric Rawls. I mean, Cam Epps is a freshman going out there trying to slow down Iowa State, and it led to some record Iowa State days. I mean, both of their receivers who were burning the Cowboys had career highs in yards and catches. So it's certainly something that you have to expect, but I don't expect it to get miraculously better. I mean, it is something I suppose you can look at as the bye week comes around at what I think is a pretty good time. But who knows if this is something that the Cowboys are able to get cleaned up by the end of the season.
Yeah, the bye week comes at a great time for OSU in terms of a reset on the field, but also just a reset off the field of the starting 2-2, not where you were supposed to be, and in what appeared to be a winnable. I don't want to say a winnable Big 12 because OU and Texas are there, but a winnable schedule where you were missing Texas and you were missing the team that just played in the national championship last year against TCU. So to me, through 4 games, it just feels like Oklahoma State's gotten off to such a disappointing start in a year where not that they were expected to be great, but a year where if they are great, it sets the Cowboys up so great for the future. But now maybe it will be, again, if we throw Texas and OU out of the picture, maybe it's another one of these Big 12 teams that steps up and becomes the king of the hill for a little bit. That Oklahoma State's kind of occupied in that 3 hole that'll now be moved up with OU and Texas leaving.
Agreed. I mean, this year had so much on the table. It's a new Big 12. It's everything new, and I think the word I would use to describe the Cowboys season so far is just uninspired. I mean, it feels kind of like right back where the Cowboys were in the last half of last season, when it just felt like a slog to score points offensively, and the defense was having some problems. So it's just been an uninspiring start to the Cowboys season for me so far.
Yeah. What is interesting is how the Cowboys were able to catch fire in 2012 and 2016, their last 2-2 starts. And, to varying degrees of effectiveness, but especially in 2016, really caught fire and turned into a great team. I'm not, I guess, so sure I see the bones of a great team so far for the Cowboys. I think that, Mike Gundy says they're all minor issues. So maybe minor issues are the thing that kind of can get hammered out in 2 weeks before you play Kansas State. But that Kansas State game, if the Cowboys play like they have the last couple weeks against Kansas State, it won't be a pretty sight. I think it's an ESPN primetime game. Got to show up if you're Oklahoma State in that one.
Yeah, and can you think to what Bedlam might look like? I mean, the Cowboys, they've got to figure some things out, and especially on the defensive end. I mean, it can't get worse, right? But maybe it can. I don't see a shining a shining knight coming through to save the day, kind of like Clint Shelf did in 2012. I'm just not seeing that right now.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, can we talk about Brennan Presley? I know you had a story about this that came out, the 5 most interesting PFF stats. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, things that we missed up in the press box or that you missed on TV just because there's so much stuff going on, the PFF grades can kind of help reveal some of the more surprising things of like, wow, Brennan Presley, he was kind of quiet. Or, I mean, I know Brennan Presley was one of your 5 notes, but what stood out to you about the Pro Football Focus grades?
Yeah, that's a good point. So Presley, Sam, he caught 2 passes for I think 9 yards, and that's his lowest yardage total in a game since 2021. I mean, Brennan Presley has been such a consistent producer for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And even more interestingly, his production has declined in all 3 games this season. He started out with a touchdown and something like 60 some yards, I think it was. But in each game, he's had less catches and less catches and less yards. So that's certainly something interesting. After the South Alabama game, Casey Dunn told us, look, we got to get BP more involved. And I think they tried. I just think the matchup in the slot there was tough for Brennan. And the Cowboys definitely seemed to go at this game with a more run-focused attack, which we saw work to varying levels with Ollie Gordon breaking off that huge run along the left sideline. So I don't know. We'll figure out what's going on with Brennan Presley, whether it is a scheme thing, if it's something he's doing, or if it's just the quarterback situation being fluid. We'll see what happens with BP. But some other PFF notes we talked about are 17 quarterback pressures, and 0 sacks. Sam, Rocco Becht for ISU, he was slippery back there. The Cowboys walked to him a bunch of times, just couldn't get him on the turf.
He kind of came out of nowhere and surprised me like Rocco Mediate in 2008. My non-golf fans are going to have to look that one up, but it was like, dang, Rocco can play a little bit, and he sure stayed upright. That is the truth. But yeah, Ben, I just remember Brennan Presley 2 years ago mossing multiple Iowa State defenders in the end zone for a huge catch going into halftime, I believe, against at Jack Trice Stadium 2 years ago, and it was just he was a player I was expecting to have a big game. After a quiet South Alabama game, I thought Casey Dunn would scheme up multiple plays for him early to get him going. They did that with Gordon, but not so much Brennan. So there's a lot of things to evaluate for the Cowboys, and a bye week comes at a great time. I know we'll be having content all the way through the bye week and getting Oklahoma State fans prepared for Kansas State and beyond.
No doubt. And we even got some men's basketball, some softball stuff kicking up. So we'll be bringing you all sorts of stuff from Sellout Crowd this week. Thanks for joining.
Before we close, we do want to mention the blood drive. It's important. It's not an ad read. It is just a thing that you can do to feel good about yourself and help out people that are in a bad spot. So the blood drive, help out people, feel good about your day. Take a few minutes to go sign up, and maybe you can win a new Kia Soul too, which would certainly help out yourself a little bit from the Bob Moore Auto Group. So thanks to everyone involved with that amazing partnership, and we encourage everyone to go out there and give some blood. It's a valuable donation that can really impact some lives.